Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. My name is Kenny Bedwell. I'm the host of this episode or this podcast that I'm going to be hosting today. So today's episode is probably going to be one of the most important episodes that I've done this year. And it's all about the change that Airbnb just announced with their fee structure. So let's talk about that because we have a lot of people listening who are interested in buying properties. And we also have in trying to, be successful and have yet to acquire that first property who don't understand what the current fee structure is and how it works. And then you have hosts. There's a lot of people listening who are already hosts who already have properties, and they're like, "Holy crap! This whole fee structure change is going to, be different and throw me off." So what we're going to do is jump into what the fee change was, the announcement, and we're going to jump into the math behind it. So I'm going to warn you, if your math is not your strong suit and you're listening to this, probably go watch it on the YouTube channel, the Cash Flow Positive YouTube channel. I'm going to have some examples pulled up so it's easy to see and understand and break down. And then at the very end of this episode, I'm actually going to give you my strategies, my pricing strategies, what I'm going to be telling my revenue managers to do because I don't do my own pricing anymore, and how I'm going to react to the change. Because we need to understand the cause and effect and the economics behind it. You have one camp. So I guess first, let me back up. I'm just like diving straight into it, which is great. But here is the policy change. So Airbnb, right? Or excuse me, today on Airbnb, when a guest goes to book, they pay a fee to Airbnb. Okay. That fee is usually, according to Airbnb's rules, it's anywhere from 14.1% to 16.5%. Depends on the country, depends on the some regions of our country, depends on the currency, what rate they get charged. But most guests are charged the minimum rate, which is 14.1%. Okay, that's straight from Airbnb's website, not from ChatGPT or Google. If you Google it, you'll see a bunch of different websites saying different things, and that has been changed over time. So 14.1% are what guests are currently paying. I want you to remember that percentage. I'm going to bring it up later, but I want you to remember that percentage. So guests are paying 14.1% and hosts are paying technically 3.5% or 3%. And really what that is the credit card processing fee. So really hosts, so if you were to use Stripe or some other, like if you were to do a direct booking and some other payment processor, you're actually paying a fee, usually about 3% for that credit card processing fee. So a direct booking site and Airbnb from a host standpoint is literally about the same payout. But from a guest standpoint, guests are paying 14.1% more than what your original fee is. So for example, if you today, it's called the split fee model. You pay your 3%, the host is paying, or the guest is paying 14.1. So if you list your property at $100 a night, okay, let's say one night gets booked. We're gonna do simple math here, okay? $100 a night, one night gets booked. So the guest is paying 14.1% on top of the 100. So that would be $114.10, and then they pay taxes. Okay, the host is paying Airbnb 3% of the $100. So that would mean you get $97. Okay, so you're getting a $97 net payout, and the guest is paying $114.10 plus taxes. So that is currently one of the current models happening. Airbnb is wanting to shift away, and this is what their announcement was on October 27th, away from a split fee. They want the host to cover the entire fee. Okay, now let's talk about that. It's not just we want the host to cover the entire fee. They want to charge the host, so they're going to be charging hosts now, and they're calling it a single fee model of 15.5%. All right. So it's not the exact same amount of, Airbnb got 14% plus the hosts of 3%. So they're getting 17%. They're not getting 17% now. They're only getting 15.5%. And what this is encouraging, basically from a marketing standpoint for Airbnb, is that they're saying, hey, guests, there are no more fees. for Airbnb. Basically, the price you see is the price you get. Keep in mind that whatever your cleaning fee is, your pet fee, additional fees that you might have on your property, including the average, or your nightly rate, they are taking 15.5% off. All right. That's a big deal for hosts. Okay. Now, first off, there's two parties I see on social media, two reactions I get, and they're extreme. Reaction number one, the sky is falling, and this is the end of Airbnb or Airbnb hosts. Reaction two, all you gotta do is raise your prices by 15.5% and you're good to go because the guests will be paying the exact same amount. Both reactions are inaccurate. Okay. There's definitely a middle ground. And depending on who you are and what type of property you have, will actually will make things better or worse. And we're going to dive into why and understanding the economics behind Airbnb's pricing increase. So let's jump into the economics behind it. So number one, let's talk about, so with the economics of it, with any type of the point of a price increase, okay, usually is obviously going to limit demand. But the reaction that people are having of, well, I will just increase my rates by 15.5% to offset what. So basically, instead of charging, $100, you're going to raise your rates to $115.50 so that you can try to get the same payout, which you're about to see the math on that isn't exactly, it's don't raise your rates by 15.5%. But the point is the guest is relatively paying the same amount as before, and you're paying Airbnb and you're getting the same amount. So there's no harm, no foul. That's what a lot of people are saying. No harm, no foul. Just raise your rates by 15.5% and you're good to go. There are two key problems with that logic. Problem number one, what happens in Airbnb if you go in and raise your prices? More importantly, the better question, let me frame that better. What happens to you in the rankings if you go in and raise your prices? You drop. Okay. So problem number one is if you're just going in and raising your prices by 15.5% or 15%, just raising your prices, there is a likelihood that you will drop in the rankings. Okay. Problem number two is the assumption that everyone's going to raise their prices by 15.5% or whatever percentage. Not everyone's going to do it. Most people don't even understand it. I'm seeing people say, well, I'm getting cut 3% already, so I just need to raise my prices by 12.5%. Other people are saying I need to raise my prices by 15%. Some people are saying 15.5%. None of them are doing actual math to understand what you actually need to raise your prices by, and the correct number is 14.79%. And we'll look at the math in a second. But the reality is a lot of people aren't doing the right math to know what they should even raise their prices to. So some people are going to be overpriced. Some people are going to be underpriced. And some people aren't even going to make any changes at all and not even realize it until the end of the month and they owe money. And they're like, well, wait a second. I'm now losing 15% to Airbnb. And that might take a few months for a lot of people on accounting purposes. They just see bookings coming in, but they don't see what they're actually getting as their net payout. So you're going to have hosts charging all different amounts, and it's not equal. It's not all things made equal because people are educated differently about the topic, and that causes an imbalance in the price fluctuation. So if you just raise your prices and you don't have zero pricing strategy to it, you will get rocked, number one in the rankings, and then number two by people who are just stupidly pricing too low. All right. So because they don't know about the announcement, they ignored the announcement, or they did the wrong math. So the reality is we need to make sure that we're pricing, we know what the correct amount we need to price up is. We do it at the right time. I'm going to talk about the timing of it, when you should do it, what I'm personally going to do. And then you need to know what the actual amount is that you should increase your pricing by and go from there. So, but back to the economics of it. I also believe too, and this is something to think about, that this, because of the ranking potential drop And when I say drop, it's going to vary property to property. And that's the number one takeaway I want you to take away from this, because not every property is going to be affected the same. More properties that are more cookie cutter, properties that look like everybody else, are going to be more impacted by this change than properties that are more unique. And it has everything to do with what we call price elasticity of demand. But the more elastic your product is, or your offering, or essentially your property, okay? Meaning that a slight uptick in pricing has a significant impact on demand. So if you charge the wrong amount, or you're just significantly priced higher than everybody else, you're not going to get booked. However, price elasticity of demand fluctuates season to season. So in the off season, it's going to be detrimental that you are extremely competitive on your pricing. And if you just raise your prices by 15% or 14.79%, which we'll talk about, you're going to get destroyed, not only in the rankings, but just bookings in general. You probably won't be booked because you'll be priced a lot higher than most other people, unless you do some discounts and some other things I'm going to talk about too. So, but in the summertime though, and I'm just using like winters, off season, summers, peak season. If your market high season, wintertime, just flip this example, okay, just for simplicity's sake. But in the summertime, when seasonality is, that's peak season, that's when you make all of your money. We call this a period of inelasticity, meaning that your price can go up 15%, but people are still willing to pay it because there's so much demand and supply is limited. I mean, that's just true on how it is today. We can raise our rates really high in the summertime and make a ton of money, or high season or peak season. And then in the off season, we got to drop our rates because there's not a lot of demand. So our properties are theoretically inelastic / elastic at different times of the year. And so by just raising your prices by a certain amount and all things made equal, it doesn't work that way unless you have a really, really, really unique property. Okay. Now that you understand the economic, hopefully, or you're just super confused and you're about to turn this off. Hopefully not. You understand the economics of it, and you understand that it can fluctuate and that it's not just a simple raise your prices by X amount. Now you have the question, okay, Kenny, cool. What are you doing? How are you combating this? How are you approaching this? Let's dive into the math, okay? Number one, we need to understand what percentage increase can we potentially charge the guest, assuming all things made equal. We need to start there. Assuming all things made equal, and I ignore the seasonality and elasticity I just talked about. Assuming all things made equal, what percentage increase should I increase my pricing so I can get the same payout? Not so I can make more money, but I can get the same payout. So one of my good friends, Sandeep Nanda, went to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, it's credit to ChatGPT, but he broke down a really simple formula in an example. I'm going to share the sheet with you, and we're going to blow it up a little bit because it's kind of hard to see. And I'm going to go here. All right. So, and this is where I'm going to explain this as over the podcast so you can listen to it while you're driving, but I strongly encourage you to go in and watch watch this on YouTube, because this is really, 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 really good stuff. Okay. So we're just going to do the first line here. Originally, this is the formula here. The formula, originally, we were getting 97%. Remember the split fee model, the host was getting charged 3% to Airbnb. So we were getting 97% of every single gross payout from Airbnb. So if you want to keep the same payout, you take 97% and divide it by the difference in payout. Or sorry, not the difference, but the net, like the percentage cost payout. So let me back up. 97% is what we're getting. Now with the new fee structure, we're only getting 84.5%. So that's 15 point. So 100 minus 15.5 gives you 84.5. So meaning the gross payout is $100. You're only getting $84.50, assuming that's what you're getting on an average nightly rate. Now, you're like, well, I don't want $84. I want $97. How do we figure this out? Take $97 divided by 84.5 Okay. So the fee or what we were getting before divided by what we're getting now. Okay. And then you're multiplying that by the price, that the average nightly rate that people are paying. Divide those two numbers together. So 97% divided by 84.5%. And that gives you 1.1479. So what that means is, and then you subtract that, or you say, yeah, you subtract that by one, and that tells you the percentage. So it's 14.79%. That's all you need to know. If you're terrible at math and you do not follow anything I just said, 14.79% is the number you need to remember. What that means is that you just change your pricing, you increase it by 14.79%, and you will receive the same exact payout as before. So the guest is now seeing, if you're listed on Airbnb today at $100 and you want to get that $97 again, increase your pricing by 14.79%, and it would go up to $114.79 on Airbnb. And that's what the guest would pay, and you would receive $97 even. That's the example. That's the math behind it. As simple as I could explain it. Maybe it wasn't that simple, but that 14.79%. But here's the problem. Okay. And remember, I said, remember this number at the beginning, what was the number? 14.1%. So the guest today is only, with the split fee model, is only paying 14.1%. All right. But now you're increasing their pricing by 14.79%. So technically, instead of them paying, before they were paying for $114.10, now they're paying $114.79. What does the law of economics say behind that? Every time you increase pricing, demand goes down based on price sensitivity or elasticity of demand. What I mean by this, and I'm going to take this out real quick so you can see me, is that for bigger properties that are charging thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars, that pricing difference could be the difference in whether they get booked or not, and whether there's people willing to pay that percentage increase. Now it's only like almost, so 0.79 minus, 1.1 is what, 69%. So there's a 0.69%, not even 1% difference in price, but 0.69% increase in price. So how many people, we don't know the answer to this question, but how many less people will book if you were charging 0.69% more? Theoretically, I mean, yes, there will be, across the macro scale of everyone booking on Airbnb, there should be technically less people booking. But Airbnb knows this. And they know that hosts don't know this and know how to do math. And so you're going to have people charging 15.5%, and they're going to overprice. That's over a percent and a half more than what guests were currently paying. And they're going to get priced out of the market because they're too expensive. And they're going to have other people who don't even change their prices at all. So Airbnb is going to take a ton of money based on host stupidity and not being able to do math. And they're willing to take the risk of the difference and charge that to the host and make the host eat the fee. So long story short, now we understand the math. We understand the price amount difference that you have to increase, all things made equal, and if you're going to try to keep the same payout. But I'm telling you all these basically these cons of doing that. So what am I doing? Here's what I'm doing. Number one, I am increasing my pricing by 14.79% across the board. Okay. However, and I'm going to keep it simple. There's some other little things I'm going to do too with my fees and, whatever. However, we're going to get aggressive on discounts, daily discounts on Airbnb. The cleaning fee is getting wrapped into your total costs, like your total nightly rate. When guests see that, they only see one cost and that's it. And you're getting hit on that. And so making sure we can eliminate all of our fees and trying to be more attractive during the off season to make up for any loss of income. Because like the average income in the off season is going to be a little bit less. People aren't going to want to pay more. So you're going to have to end up discounting more. And also you're competing against people who aren't even priced right to begin with. They're not increasing their fees. So you're going to have to drop your prices down in the off season. It's going to really, really hurt the shoulder and off season more. So that's when I'm going to be applying Airbnb discounts, length of stay discounts to really encourage people to come stay and be aggressive and try to focus on bookings in the wintertime and not necessarily ADR, average daily rate. Okay. Just getting bookings, getting occupancy in the wintertime is more important. In the summertime, that's when I'm going to really try to make up the rate change by charging that, 14.79% and not offering any discounts, and I might even charge a little bit more, depending on, how the bookings are going, and really try to take advantage and get that 14.79%. But I'm gonna be honest with you, like even increasing by 14.79%, we're not going to get the same payout we got the previous year, all things made equal. Okay. That's why it's so important to have a really unique property where these pricing fee influxes do not make an impact on you as much as other people. Last thing, it's got to be brought up. The obvious solution to all this is get a direct booking site so you don't have to worry about Airbnb, right? And frankly, some of you are in markets like that have mainly VRBO bookings. They've been charging 13% or whatever it is to host forever, and you haven't had to factor that in. And really don't get a lot of bookings on Airbnb. That happens in Kentucky. Like our Kentucky property is not going to be impacted the same as our Asheville property because Asheville gets all the bookings on Airbnb. Kentucky gets all the bookings on VRBO. So who cares in Kentucky? But in Asheville, we're getting, it's going to have an impact. We're going to have to be strategic. We're going to have to do things. We might have to add amenities to stand out and be unique and build a bigger mode or whatever. And so we're also focused on marketing, direct booking sites, and gaining the guest emails through stuff like StayFi. So we can hit them and get direct bookings and do some marketing online. So there's a lot of other things, but the reality is like the overall arching thing is number one, it's not the end of the world. Don't panic. But number two, you need to have a strategy or you will get hit in the pockets. You need a direct booking site at this point. You got to have it. You got to start building your own business, start getting away from just Airbnb. Look at other OTAs, build your business. But also like this is just one of those other things like we gotta, unfortunately we have to deal with. And it's not something that long term should have an impact on every single one of us. Obviously, like today, it's going to have an impact. And as people adjust in the next year or so, that's where we really see who's going to withstand the tell of time. But in the long term, this isn't going to be that impactful. So just focus on what you can do today to become more independent, how you can get more of those direct bookings, and then make sure your pricing or you understand the strategy and the price increase. And if you have a revenue manager, they understand the 14.79% because some of them aren't doing the math either. And so I'm hearing different numbers. Like I have a call with my revenue manager who told me a different price, and I was like, for the percentage increase, I was like, that's not right, and here's why. So make sure you're having those conversations today, and also do it before October 27th. At least the day before, because everybody else is going to do it on October 27th. And what did we talk about rankings? You drop when you increase your pricings. So if you're already down and everyone drops their prices, increases their prices, and you increase your prices a few days before, you might actually get boosted in the rankings because other people are increasing their prices at the same exact time. So think about that, cause and effect. And that will help you kind of outsmart and outmaneuver some of the negative impacts of this fee structure change. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm going to try to do an interview with somebody on this next episode that just talks about kind of the cause and effects with evaluating Airbnbs in the future, because this impacts the data that we see in STR Insights, AirDNA, Price Labs, Data Rabu when we're evaluating properties. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think it's going to be one of the most important ones I've done this year, because it impacts hosts today, everyone who's using Airbnb. And I will see you on the next episode of Cash Flow Positive.